pencil or piece of paper, write it down so that you can well organize it. When you get on the show, you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards. But we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Thank you all again. You can also follow our live video stream on our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio and our YouTube channel, Vaughan Radio. Click subscribe. Tonight, the program is in two parts. The first segment, Nurse Sherilyn Pemberton, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Herbert.
Nurse, well, not nurse, Florine Williams, who is a PRO for the Nevis Renal Society. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Webbo.
And Dr. Michelle Lawrence, who is a member of the Nevis Renal Society. Good evening, and all welcome.
Good evening. Yes.
Okay. Now, people always harass me and tell me they need more ladies on Let's Talk. And we got an all-ladies lineup on this first segment. So I hope the harassment cease. So it's good to have all of you as members of the Nevis Renal Society. If we have done you once, we've done you 100 times. And we're so appreciative of the fact that you'll always, when you're having any celebrations, any activities or anything, you include us on your calendar. You speak with us and let the rest of the society know what you're doing. That's one of those occasions now. So why don't we, Dr. Lawrence, this is your first time here?
My first time, yes.
Well, don't make it your last, and a very special welcome to you. These are the girls, we're always with them. Okay, so why don't we begin, especially for the benefit of those who don't know as yet, what is the Nevis Renal Society all about, and then we will go from there and get down to as far as the event that we are having.
Yes, good evening once again to all our radio listeners, those who are listening locally and those who are listening and viewing via the internet. Just want to say welcome. My name again is Sherilyn Pemberton. I'm president of the Nevis Renal Society. And as you said earlier, we have already introduced our two other members. This evening we are here on a threefold mission. The threefold mission, we will begin by, I will give a brief history of the Renal Society, and I will also give what we have been doing throughout our week of activities, and then our PRO, which is Florine, she will discuss about recruitment and also soliciting donations for our society. Then we'll have Dr. Michelle, who will be coming on board, and she will be speaking about the importance of keeping your health in perspective. So this evening, I would like to start by saying the Nevis Renal Society started around in November in 1999. So this year we are actually celebrating 24 years since existence. We have been through some hiatus period, we have been through some challenges, but we are here once again, and it's because of the clientele that we have to be facing. You know, we are here to let them know we are here to support them emotionally, educationally, financially, and to make them aware that their health care is very important. Our mission statement then and still is as now to establish a renal dialysis on Nevis in conjunction with the NIA and the Nevis Renal Society through promotion, education, and research. This will subsequently lead to the reduction and prevention of incident of chronic renal failure in our population. We have been achieving our short-term goals, such as through education and awareness and prevention. We have been doing like screening, we have been doing educational talks, and our second goal, which is assisting our clientele with financial assistance, we have been doing that. And this evening, once again, we are here to discuss a week of activities. Now, our week of activities has started. We had our Sunday service, which was held on the 5th of March. This was held at the Berea Gospel Chapel in Brownhill. And we just want to thank Elder Blake, Elder Ward, and Elder Fifield and the members of the church for being so hospitable to us. We are also placing our record for the tangible donation that we have received for the society. And we just want to say thank you ever so much. Well, tonight we are here to continue to discuss the week of activity. And on Wednesday, our next activity will be a health screening at the Memorial Square from 9 a.m. to 12 midday. We will be doing blood pressure, blood glucose testing, and BMI. We will be working in conjunction with the Health Promotion Unit. They will be there to assist us as well. On Thursday 9th, which is World Kidney Day, the theme for the year, which is Kidney Health for All, preparing for the unexpected, supporting the vulnerable. We will also be doing a health screening test at the Hanleys Road Community Center with the seniors who will be meeting there on that day. And this will start from 10 o'clock in the morning. These are just the activities that we have for this week. Now, the purpose of World Kidney Day. This is celebrated every second Thursday of each year. So we normally have our week of activities commemorate around that time. It is a global campaign aimed at raising awareness of the importance of our kidneys to our overall health and at reducing the frequency and impact of kidney disease and its associated problems. Now, we know that, Dr. Michelle Lawrence will allude to most of the medical facts and so on just now. But we know we have been in the society for so long, and we have been really making an effort to raise the awareness of our health and how we can take control of our health. Many a times, like how we are going to be doing the screening in Charlestown, people come around, have their screening done, and then that's it. But we are looking forward to people coming to have their tests done and have follow-ups, whether with their doctor, the community nurse, or whoever, because that one-time screening would not be enough. And that's why, right now the Federation is combating with the NCDs like hypertension and diabetes. It's one of the leading factors of morbidity and mortality here in the Federation. So it is very important that one should take control of their health, and we are a leading source to do that from the Renal Society, and we are trying our best to do so, because the complication of the diabetes and high blood pressure is what leads to renal failure. We don't want them to get to this point. So that's why we are here advocating and ensuring that the message is being sent out there through education and prevention, and hoping that it will sow some seed. So this evening I will pass it on to Ms. Florine, our PRO, who would do a brief overview.
Good evening once again. My name is Florine Williams. I'm the PRO for the Nevis Renal Society. I'm the one who really go out and interact with people, interact with establishment to raise funds to assist people with kidney failure and renal failure. Okay, I will start. The Nevis Renal Society is on the drive to recruit new members into the society. At present, our membership stands around 20 members. In order for the society to continue functioning effectively, we must have a continuous recruitment plan so that the goals of the society can be accomplished. We are appealing to the general public to join us and make a difference in the lives of those affected with kidney disease and renal failure. We have monthly meetings at 5 p.m. on every third Thursday of each month, at Eureka Health Services, which is Dr. Libert Conference Room, located at Rumsbury site. For more information, you can contact me, the PRO, or the President, Ms. Sherilyn Pemberton, who is here with us, also Dr. Michelle Lawrence, or any member of the Renal Society. Sherilyn number is 669-4185. My number is 669-3477. Or as I said before, any member of the Nevis Renal Society. During our health screening, you will receive a form that contains a question asking, would you like to join the Renal Society? This allows us to track those persons who gave a positive answer. We are looking forward for your membership. We are also looking donations to aid our financial needs. Our major source of income comes in the form of fundraising effort along with subscription from our membership as well. In this regard, we are looking for donors to come on board. We will accept one-time donors, weekly donors, and monthly donors. You can contact any one of us to discuss your contribution plan towards the society. Please note, the society also has a bank account at the Bank of Nevis, which number is 142239. I repeat, the Nevis Renal Society have a bank account at the Bank of Nevis. The number is 142239. Thank you very much, and we go on to Dr. Michelle Lawrence.
Good evening again. I'm Dr. Lawrence, a member of the Nevis Renal Society, and I've chosen tonight to speak about non-communicable diseases. Reason being, chronic kidney disease is one of the main complications that's affecting a lot of our Nevisians and Kittians, and on a worldwide scale, as a complication of some of these non-communicable diseases, principally diabetes and hypertension. So what is a non-communicable disease? It is any disease that's chronic, meaning there's no cure, and it is not contagious, meaning it can't spread from one person to the next. It's usually, there is treatment, but treatment does not lead to a cure, unfortunately. And the principal non-communicable diseases that's affecting the world on a large scale are cardiovascular diseases, and this includes ischemic heart disease, hypertensive heart disease, hypertension, and strokes, which be it ischemic strokes or hemorrhagic strokes. Then there are chronic respiratory diseases, cancers, diabetes mellitus of its different types, and mental disorders. So those are the principal types of non-communicable diseases. And for each of these groups of diseases, because they make up, each one of these groups have several different types. For example, cancers, there are many different types of cancers. There are 5 main principal risk factors. And by risk factors, we speak of any factor that increases your chances of suffering from any of these diseases. So risk factors can be divided into 2 groups. There are those risk factors which you can change or which you can modify. We call them modifiable risk factors. And then there are those that you can't change, unfortunately, and they're called non-modifiable risk factors. So when we speak of non-modifiable risk factors, we're speaking of age. We know that some diseases are more prevalent depending on how old you are. For example, cancers, principally, we look at patients over the age of 40. Breast cancer, prostate cancer, we usually start screening, especially prostate cancer, from the age of 40. And then there are certain like hypertension, over the age of 40. Mind you, there are persons who are younger and do suffer with these diseases, but principally if there aren't any other factors that can lead to you suffering disease, your age plays a big factor, a big role in deciding that. Gender, we know that some diseases depends on your gender. So breast cancer, it is not gender dependent, but it is more prevalent in women. But men can also suffer from breast cancer. And then there's cervical cancer, that's only in women. Prostate cancer, only in men. So that's a non-modifiable risk factor. You can't change it, so depending on your gender, your chance of suffering a particular illness can be decided by that factor. Then there's your family history, your inheritance, it's hereditary. So some persons will say, high blood pressure and diabetes run in my family, so I'm going to get it. Not necessarily, but it increases your risk and it increases your chance of suffering from one of these non-communicable diseases, being high blood pressure, diabetes, types of cancer, heart disease. They're all increased by, it can be increased, your chance can be increased by that particular genetics that you inherit from your family. And then there is your ethnicity, your race. We know that some diseases are more prevalent in the black race, or it could be in Hispanics, for example. Diabetes and hypertension, it is a leading cause in Hispanics, African Americans, blacks in general, and in Filipinos or Asians. So those are the non-modifiable risk factors, things you can't change. But they do not necessarily define you or determine that you'll get an illness. Then there are those modifiable risk factors, or factors we like to call lifestyle factors, things you can change by just modifying your lifestyle. For example, your physical inactivity is a risk factor, and that leads to obesity, overweight and obesity, which are also risk factors. And there is tobacco use, alcohol consumption, eating on unhealthy diets, and air pollution. There are other risk factors, and it can include also your mental health, but those are the principal ones that we primarily focus on. That those are things that persons can alter very easily and can reduce their risk and their chance of suffering from a non-communicable disease. So I'd like to give you some statistics. Recently there was a non-communicable diseases national conference held in St. Kitts, and two of us here, me, myself, and Nurse Pemberton attended, as well as two others from the society attended, representing the Nevis Renal Society. But it was a multi-sectorial conference, persons from every possible area you can think about, be it governmental and non-governmental. And it was a 3-day conference, and at that conference we really zoomed in on the large scale problem we have in the Federation, in the Caribbean, and in the world at large concerning non-communicable diseases and the effects it's been having on our economy and our social and economic status here in the Federation. And at the conference we tried, and plans were made, trying to plan a way forward and how we are going to combat this problem, how we are going to fight it, and to lessen the incidence of non-communicable diseases in the Federation. So we got some up-to-date statistics. So in St. Kitts Nevis, the leading cause of morbidity, sickness and death is hypertension and diabetes mellitus. And of the 1,914 deaths from 2015 to 2019, 57.8% was due to an NCD, and that is more than half of the deaths during that time period. And of that 57.8% that was due to an NCD, cardiovascular diseases accounted for 34.5%, cancers accounted for 31.8%, and diabetes and its relative complications accounted for 23.6%. Very large numbers. And in those cardiovascular diseases, stroke was the leading cause at 47.5%, and ischemic heart disease or heart attacks 45.3%. Very, very alarming numbers, unfortunately, here in the Federation. And they gave some other statistics as well. In the primary care setting, we found that the two leading causes of morbidity in the Federation is hypertension and diabetes. And this is based on statistics gathered from the health centers. So for hypertension, there is a 31 of the total amount of persons suffering from hypertension. 31.7% is male sex, and 68.3% women. And then diabetes, similar numbers, 31.5% male and 68.5% female. Then cancers from during the time period of 2017 to 2021, the leading causes of cancer in the Federation: 1, breast cancer; 2, prostate cancer; 3, colon cancer; 4, skin cancer; and 5, endometrial cancer. Renal disease, or chronic kidney disease, or chronic kidney failure, renal failure, it has many different names. It's one of the leading complications of these non-communicable diseases, hypertension and diabetes. And the statistics show that we have 35 persons on dialysis. That is very alarming. 35 persons on dialysis, and of that number, 25 are male, and 10 are female patients. And of those 35 patients on dialysis, which is hemodialysis, 22 of them suffer from hypertension, and 10 suffer from a combination of both hypertension and diabetes. So you'd see why I've chosen to discuss non-communicable diseases for this same alarming number of patients on dialysis, persons affected by chronic kidney disease. So leading causes of death in St. and Nevis, and they compared 2009 versus 2019, and the 3 leading causes were stroke, ischemic heart disease or heart attack, and 3, diabetes. Over the years from 2009 to 2019, it continued to be stroke leading, heart attack as the second leading cause, and diabetes as the third cause. But then there was a switch up. In 2009, chronic kidney disease was number 4, but then in 2019 that changed to the 5th leading cause. In 2009, HIV and AIDS was number 5, and that has risen to number 4 as the 4th leading cause in 2019 for death in St. Kitts and Nevis. And there are other causes, of course. Prostate cancer would have been number 7. In 2019, that increased to number 6. Breast cancer was number 10 in 2009. and that went to number 12 in 2019. So those are some local stats for you. On the regional scale, in the Caribbean, as of 2019, total number of deaths due to non-communicable diseases accounted for 69% of total death. And of that, premature death, meaning ages 30 to 70, that was 45%. So these numbers are just showing how alarming and how grave of a problem we have in terms of non-communicable diseases. The numbers are surprisingly very high, and it is even higher during in that age group 30 to 70, which comprises the principal part of our workforce, unfortunately. So the effects of these NCDs, of course, it affects, you have different levels to these effects. It's a ripple effect, really. It starts off with the family and persons affected with these diseases at home. You can imagine economic problems, having to spend lots of money on medication, treatments, doctor visits, other forms of therapy, especially dialysis therapy. And dialysis sessions are quite costly. And that's one of the things we try to do as a society. We try to raise funds to help our clients, or those that we know of, help our clients to defray the cost of dialysis treatment. So it has a effect on the family, as I said, and especially for children. If you have a sick parent, a lot of funds are used up in treatment. Children may not get the attention that they would normally get, or we would like that they get. And then even when children themselves do become sick, it affects them academically. They are not able to perform as well as they would like to at school, and that also affects them. And then our working force, if most of your time is spent being sick or having to run to doctor visits, trying to manage an illness, there are more sick days, and that leads to a decrease in your productivity. And the economic effects of all of this can be grave, and we are starting to feel it. At the conference they mentioned the amount of money that's been going into non-communicable diseases, as it's putting a strain on the health system and the health resources. And if we're having to spend more money on health for diseases that we can control or we can decrease, it means that less money is going towards other areas. I don't think health gets enough, just saying, but we can lessen some of these diseases, we can lessen the incidence of these diseases, and can, which result in spending less money on things that we actually can control if we were to manage those risk factors which I mentioned earlier. So what I want to leave with you is an action plan. And well, on the level of the federation and the government, they have started, as I told you, the conference, and they will be having programs throughout the year, regional programs, campaigns, encouraging persons to, adopt healthier lifestyle, whether be it you're changing your diet, increasing your levels of activity, decreasing your weight, and avoiding use of tobacco, decreasing your consumption of alcohol to a nil. And so we want to encourage you, the listening audience, to adopt healthy lifestyle changes. Work on those factors which I mentioned earlier that were modifiable. meaning your inactivity, you increase that to being active at least 30 minutes per day. And eating a healthier diet, a diet that is predominantly fruits and vegetable based, healthy fats, proteins, lots of water, vitamins, supplements, and a balanced diet. I'm not telling you not to eat, partake in a little snack now and again, but everything in excess is bad. So avoid your use of tobacco and alcohol. Sometimes they're just seen as vices, socially accepted, or you look cool, but they have long-term effects, and it's a problem. It can just be maybe an occasional thing for you, but for someone else it's a chronic problem and a habit they can't seem to shake, and it's having its effects on their body, which can lead to long-term effects. And so avoid the use of tobacco, decrease your alcohol consumption to nil or zero, and adopt a healthy diet. And of course, physical activity, at least 30 minutes 5 days a week. There are a lot of walks, lots of groups, banks, non-government organizations that plan health walks. Try to attend them. Whatever the cause is, you can support by the t-shirt, the water bottle, the backpack, whatever it is, and you support a good cause as well as getting in your physical activity. And I want to make a plight for persons that do suffer with illnesses, any of these non-communicable diseases. Visit your doctor regularly, get regular screenings, be on top of whatever your illness is, be it diabetes, hypertension. Know what your base values are, know how your particular illness is being controlled. Make sure you take your medication. Bear in mind, a visit to the emergency room is not a doctor visit. That's just you in a crisis at that time. But make it a habit of visiting your doctor. And to those of you who are assumed well, do make it a habit to visit your doctor at least once per year. We call them wellness checks, because you assume that you're well, and you do an annual wellness check at your family doctor, not at the hospital, not for a cold, not for a flu, a wellness check. And you do that at least once per year. You do some regular labs, so you know what your status is. We always speak about knowing your status when it comes to AIDS, but you still really need to know your status when it comes to diabetes, what your blood sugar is, what your blood pressure is. Those are things, because sometimes they are ongoing and they're silently in progress, and if you don't know what your baseline is, and you'd never find it until maybe by chance you visit the doctor and you find out your blood pressure is high. Some persons never find out until it's way too late. So that is my take on non-communicable diseases, and we hope to see you at our screening tomorrow, being what I've said in mine. Tomorrow at the square, the Memorial Square, from 9 until 12 noon.
But doctor, before I see you tomorrow at the square, I just would like to ask a question from my own edification, and perhaps I believe maybe for persons who might be listening. Our society of blacks and the Caribbean society, one of the things that is prevalent as a non-communicable disease is a high blood pressure. And I don't know if a lot of us are aware that uncontrolled high blood pressure, what it does to kidney failure. So if we can just reiterate that again,
So both high blood pressure and diabetes. So let me take high blood pressure first. With high blood pressure, high blood pressure is that the pressure coursing through your veins and your arteries are at an alarmingly higher pressure than it should be. And so when we measure blood pressure, we aim for normal blood pressure from 120 over 80, 120 being systolic, 80 being diastolic, up to, it was 140 over 90. From 140 over 90 was considered high, but now because of the high incidence of high blood pressure, we're starting to look at anything over 135 as a high systolic, and anything over 85 as a high systolic. So high blood pressures that are uncontrolled and they're just, and you're unaware of it, so they go uncontrolled for a period of time, damages the kidneys. The kidneys are made up of little tiny functional units, and you have millions of them in the kidney, and they have very small vessels. So imagine a high blood pressure going through a very, very small vessel. It damages those vessels and it damages the kidney.
So it is fair to say then that though you may not be realizing it, it's happening,
taking effect, yes.
And then over time, it appears that all of a sudden you have kidney trouble.
Yes, but
it's not really all of a sudden.
No.
It was over time. I just wanted to point that out, because sometimes people don't, because it isn't happening and they're noticing it and then they're feeling sick.
True.
We probably don't know of the damage.
It's gone.
So
And
yes,
this can due to also that they're not visiting their doctors as regularly as they would like to, because most of the time it becomes chronic and it happens over a period of time that they don't realize that it's happening to them, and they don't visit their doctors to get that regular check so that their kidney function and all that is being performed.
do we have any data or evidence to show that some of the cases that we have locally are linked to the blood pressure, because of, maybe not that alone, but do we have any?
Yes, so of the 35 persons that we have on dialysis in the Federation, I think it's 22?
Mm-hmm.
22 persons suffer from high blood pressure, and 10 persons suffer from a combination of diabetes and high blood pressure. So,
okay.
principally high blood pressure is causing chronic kidney disease in the Federation.
And though we can have that deficiency or that ailment, simply, as nurse just said, controlling, visiting your doctor, taking your medication, etc., can take you out of that range, right?
Yeah,
okay.
definitely.
Okay, so what you said happens tomorrow. We'll see you where?
Yes, tomorrow at the Memorial Square in Charlestown from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. There will be a registration area. There will be an area for blood pressure and blood glucose testing. And as I said, the health promotion unit will be on hand to assist us as well. So we'll be there from 9 o'clock until. So we have heard the statistics from Dr. Lawrence, and it's alarming. And the fierce urgency, we can realize it now. And we are imploring the general public to be vigilant about your health. See your doctor for your yearly checks, even when you're not feeling sick. Know your numbers, as doctor was saying. Understand what is the numbers are saying to you. And you go and visit your doctor. You have a conversation with the doctor, and you can let them know what you're feeling, how you're feeling, what the numbers are saying. And it is very important, because most people, would go to the doctor and they would say, come back, and they say they don't understand what the doctor is saying to them. You can sit down, have a conversation with your doctor, ask your doctor what is happening to you in terms of your condition, whether you're suffering from high blood pressure and diabetes, what medication are you on, understanding your medication and knowing the dosage and the name of your medication is very important. So these are some of the things that one should know when they go to the doctor. They ask these questions. So we are grateful, Mr. Herbert, for having us here this evening, that we're able to impart the information in terms of health and what health is all about. We have to think of it in its entirety, and we are grateful, even though we came to talk about the kidney. There's so much things that involve that. High blood pressure can cause kidney disease. Diabetes can also cause kidney disease, but we don't want people to get to that level. That's why we go out and we have educational talks and we have health screening, so that people can understand. Once you have control and once you take control of your health, you can go on to live productive and normal lives.
Okay, so once again, thank you very much for coming, and hope that we will see everybody tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Mr. Webbo.
Yes, and I would like to thank the other members of the Renal Society for being so, active with us. They have been very good, and, I appreciate them very much for their hard work and dedication over the years. Thank you, Mr. Herbert, once again, and a pleasant good evening.
Dr. Michelle Lawrence, member of the Nevis Renal Society. Florence Williams is the PRO of the Nevis Renal Society, and Nurse Sherilyn Pemberton is president of the Nevis Renal Society. Thank you all. That's the first segment. The second segment will be back with that right after these.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938.
When VON vibrates, the whole Caribbean must shake.
8:60 a.m. The Powerhouse.
Back on this episode of Talk That Get Results, our first segment featured the Nevis Renal Society. President of the Society, Nurse Sherilyn Pemberton, Florine Williams, the Public Relations Officer, and Dr. Michelle Lawrence is a member of that society. We thank them very much for being on the first segment. And if you joined late and you missed it, remember the repeat is tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Very important, and they're having an event tomorrow at the War Memorial Square in Charlestown. Health checks, you can get your blood pressure, you can do a test for your kidneys and all that. So that event is tomorrow. The second segment. Good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and once again I say good evening to your hard-working staff here at Vaughan Radio. Good evening to my colleague, Mr. Spencer Brand. And Webbo, a very interesting discussion in the first segment. Very serious and very interesting discussion. And I suppose we can have a little chatter about that in the going forward this evening. Webbo?
The Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and a very pleasant good evening to our listeners here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and certainly those who are listening to this edition via the various media platforms. Let me say a very pleasant good evening tonight. Webbo, I want to say good evening to all those who are celebrating tonight, whether it's a birthday, an anniversary, or some accomplishment. I want to say a very special good evening to my friend here in Hamilton, Verna Daniel, who celebrated her birthday today. Happy birthday again, Verna. I hope you have had a wonderful, wonderful day. Webbo, to those families who are in mourning, I certainly want to take this opportunity to offer my condolences. In particular, the family of Earl Paris, better known to us as Jimmy, there in the Hamilton. My condolences to the family and all those who are in mourning tonight. I hope that they can certainly remember their loved one with fond memory. Webbo, as Naya indicated earlier, I believe that we have had a very wonderful discussion earlier with folks from the Nevis Renal Society. I thought that they would have given some very timely and pertinent information that I believe all those who are listening can take to heart. I believe it's an issue that we face here in the Caribbean, here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and I think that the suggestion of lifestyle changes in terms of dieting and in terms of what we eat and what we smoke or not smoke, certain behaviors, I think is very good advice. But I think it's an issue that we all confront here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Number of persons having renal challenges, non-communicable diseases, high blood pressure, and diabetes that continue to be a challenge here. And I would encourage all of us, Webbo, that the information that was shared with us here by the doctor and the other members of the Nevis Renal Society is good information, and I think we all should take it to heart and basically follow the advice, because I believe that at the end of the day, the information that was shared is good information, that it goes to trying to improve our lives, improve our communities, our societies, improve the quality of life that we have once we are prepared to do those things. So I thought it was a very interesting discussion, and I certainly hope that when it's rebroadcast, that our people would listen to it again and probably share it. Webbo, good evening.
Yes, good evening once again. And you mentioned Jimmy Paris, right?
Yes.
And I just wanted to mention there that he is one of my. We had a trio of friends. I have a lot of friends, and they come in certain categories. So, so he was in a category of friends with three. Mm-hmm. So himself and myself and a fellow called Wellington Paris. You know him?
Oh yes. Who don't know Wellington?
Oh, okay. So those fellows will harass me to death. So anyway, so we're close friends. So I used to play cricket, and Jimmy used to play cricket, and maybe Wellington used to play, but I know him as a selector. So anyway,
somebody have to select the team.
Yeah. So Wellington had a special role for me among the three of us, and the execution of that role, the first part of it will come on Saturday. So I'll say no more on that. But we three friends, okay? And we're not the three blind mice either. Everybody's song. So I think I better play that song tomorrow. Is okay?
From my good friend here in Trinidad, the mighty Chocolates.
Right.
Yes.
So it's okay to play that tomorrow?
Sure.
But not necessarily from me, Jimmy, and Wellington. That's just a light moment. So I'll play it tomorrow, and then just remember the three of us.
All right.
Okay, good fella, Jimmy.
Yes.
What a sportsman.
Peaceful.
I know him to be a tennis player, a referee, footballer, cricketer. What
peaceful
a sportsman.
Footballer.
Peaceful soul.
In that era, once you play one, you play all, and you almost were good at each one. A lot of people don't know that. Maybe they're too young, and we don't do our history well. But made solid contribution. Yes. For those of you who don't know, lived in Government Road area, Lower Government Road. What they call it now, where Dr. Rollins' office is at right below
Right
there.
below there,
Yeah. Now, how you know that?
I used to go to Fleati school, man.
Yeah.
You used to do what?
I used to go to Fleati school.
Oh.
You know the Fleati school?
What do you mean if I know that?
Below the Sabbath there?
Yes.
And so I know Jimmy. And I know everything there because they had a baby lime tree used to be there as a little kid.
But you know his mother used to sell sugar cake too? You didn't know that?
That's the tight one.
You never used to eat sugar cake?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Oh,
but I
okay.
remember the guy Stuart used to live there too. A guy
Okay.
named Stuart, and
That was his nephew.
yeah, I was pretty. I left that area when I was 9 years old because the school closed,
Oh.
and then we went to boys' school. And so but remember Jimmy profoundly as a sportsman in Grove Park.
Opening batsman for
Opening
Nevis.
batsman.
Soft spoken.
Yeah, very
Spoken.
peaceful, quiet, unassuming, But,
Yeah, well attired kind of a sportsman he was too.
Yeah.
I used to admire his profile and and remain that peaceful soul,
Yep.
very communicable.
Yep.
I would almost say good friend of mine because he used to work at the supply office for a while, which is next to me, and we always communicate. And he listened to the program too,
Oh, yeah.
quite a lot.
Well, then, didn't I tell you we're friends? Yeah, good fella, and has some good. You can have a good conversation with him in terms of logic.
Yeah, deep.
Yes. Okay, well, we're gonna miss him.
Yeah,
but
God bless you, sir.
I normally say when you get to this stage, and you do a transition, because life is in stages,
Yes.
and you begin to more appreciate what people have done, and look at it that way. So, okay. Now you had mentioned a couple of things about the program before, and one of the things why we keep doing these topics, the general population, I always argue, somehow don't like these topics because they say they're too boring, but they have necessity.
Yes.
And one of the alarming things is that a lot of people are not aware. I became aware of it, a few years ago, because I always have interaction. You heard me say at the beginning, they always come here,
Yes.
talk about it. And I thought it was important to again highlight, because we have there were the numbers, the statistics, and not only black people as a whole, but our society, and diabetes and high blood pressure. But they refer to high blood pressure as a silent killer, because
Yes.
sometimes you may feel okay,
Okay.
but a lot of people are not aware that high blood pressure untreated, how much damage it is silently doing to your kidneys. So all of a sudden you hear somebody got kidney failure and you think it's all of a sudden,
Yeah.
but it's a consequence of
Over time.
the overtime.
Over time.
As if we knew more about diabetes contributing to that than high blood pressure. 'Cause I've heard that that connection.
Right, and I also made a note here as they were talking about the event that they're having tomorrow for people to come and get tested and checked and all that. And I thought thinking to myself, Mr. Brand, you are at the seat of power, so to speak, and so you in the cabinet, you may not be the health minister, but I just wonder what it would be like if we go as aggressively and spend as much money on prevention, right,
Yes.
as we spend on trying to cure.
But you're absolutely correct. I think that perhaps educating our people in terms of preventative measures is perhaps an area that and I think that we all can agree on, that we probably need to do a bit more on. Tonight, the good doctor would have given some information in terms of what you eat, not smoking, exercising, all kind of things that we can do to prevent certain things. And perhaps I believe, Webbo, that if we quote unquote market that a bit more and much more aggressively, perhaps I believe we'll be able to see the change in the kind of behavior that we are looking for. And as a result, we may not have to invest so much as we are now investing in terms of cure and maintaining persons to live a more comfortable life and a bit more long. But I think it's a lifestyle, change in lifestyle, and I agree with you that perhaps we can be a lot more aggressive in educating our people. I believe that while we have some entities that do certain health promotion, health education, and that kind of things, the flip side of that is we are in a society where alcohol is easily accessible, cigarette is easily accessible, persons, we now have a lot more vehicles, persons don't do as much exercise as probably we ought to, and I think that all of these things, Webbo, perhaps prevent us from not doing what we ought to do. But I think that you are absolutely correct. We can become a lot more aggressive in ensuring that, based on the advice and the suggestions from the good Dr. Lawrence, that if we are to do a lot more of those preventative measures, if we are to do a lot more exercise, if we are to reduce the alcohol consumption and the tobacco consumption and that kind of thing, that perhaps we can see a much greater turnaround and reduction in things like high blood pressure and diabetes, and reduction in the amount of kidney failures. I go back to what I said earlier. It's almost a kind of encouraging our people to make those kind of lifestyle changes, and once we are able to do that, then I believe that we can mitigate and reduce the expenditure that we are now doing in terms of finding cures and maintaining people.
Yes, I thought the discussion was a healthy discussion, and I think they hit the nail straight on the head. We do see a few people coming up with kidney problems. Sometimes I wonder if it's genetically related. But for those who probably had a family member suffer from it, maybe they should be paying closer attention to it. But I think everyone should be paying close attention to this, because it's no cure. I think I overheard that it cannot be cured. You can only try to facilitate the patient and for them to live a normal life. But I find it. I've spoken to an individual who suffer from kidney problems, and he tell me, when I speak to him.
Let me just take this. Good evening. You're on the air.
Good evening, Webbo. Good evening to your panel this evening. I unfortunately didn't get to listen from the beginning, but I was just listening to Honorable Brand. And one of the things I thought about right away was, we hear a lot of talk about medical insurance, universal medical insurance. I don't know that if he's in a position to give us an update of where we are with that right now. But when I lived in the U.S., one of the things that taught me a lot of discipline was that the jobs I had, I was covered with medical insurance. And one of the things that dictated was that you had to go to the doctor either twice a year, every 6 months, or once a year, and get a full medical checkup to maintain. That was one of the requirements to maintain your medical insurance. And it taught discipline. It also gave an eye in the early stages of what might be developing in your system, and made you more aware of what you need to do and how you need to maintain yourself. And I am to hope that with the coverage of the medical insurance, that might be one of the factors that would lead people to regular checkups with the doctors. That would put them in a position where if something is developing in their system, it can be detected in the early stages. Yes, we're from a culture where we drink a lot of bush tea and we have our own local cures, but I think that we've gotten past a lot of that now, where we need to be more, take a lot more responsibility and be a lot more, what's the word I want to use? Webbo, help me out now. Cassandra, let's see if you don't tell me what to say.
Outreaching.
Discipline. Discipline is what we need in order to help us live more healthier lives. And I'm hoping that, like I said, with the medical insurance, a lot of people don't go to the doctor because they can't afford it. They're afraid of what the bills might be. But if they're covered under some kind of medical insurance through the job, through the government health system, whatever it is, it will encourage more people to get out to the doctors on a regular basis and keep up with what's happening in their bodies and get to fight it in the early stages. A lot of times when we end up at the doctors, it's because we've been feeling this pain for weeks. We've tried and we've drank everything under the sun, and it hasn't worked. And so now we're at the doctor, and unfortunately, that may be too late. I just thought I would chime that in.
You asked me to help you out, so here I would help you out by suggesting. I think that's a very important point that you made, and you asked Mr. Brand whether or not he had any update on that insurance. But the point I want to make with regards to that, though, and I was saying earlier that the discussion that we had, I thought, is very important. A lot of the society somehow don't gravitate to these type of discussion, but these are things that we need to know and need to do in terms of us as a society. And I sometimes argue we like too much politics, right? But this encompasses some politics as well in terms of getting it done. And I want to encourage us that when we do make noise and participate in the political discussion, that we deal with issues like these rather than cussing one another, because we can derive benefits from them. And if the right amount of pressure were continuously applied, maybe we would have had this thing done already. To be fair, I heard the Prime Minister made some reference to it recently, the current Prime Minister, as to get going with it. Now, that issue with the health insurance and also the Social Security, because I was telling someone the other day that these are programs that I think the government should make priorities, because a lot of people, I understand, are finding out now in the latter stages at the 11th hour, they wish that somebody had actually forced them to pay their Social Security or to join as a self-employed and so on and so forth, because now the glory days are dwindling and then it's not there. And so the same thing, a call that you point out with the health. And if you get this health insurance and you put that clause in, and people, are quote unquote forced to visit their doctor and then prevention, they'll be grateful for it in the end.
Well, one of the things, when you're younger, you don't think about that kind of stuff, and I thank God that He's allowed me to live old enough where I can appreciate Social Security. Because back then, that was the last thing on my mind. I was paying. This money was coming out of my paycheck when I lived in the U.S. and even here. It's amazing. Even coming back here, and was able to work here over a certain period of time, you get to well, I'm struggling tonight. What's going on with me? You get to
your benefit. You get your benefit.
Your older days, and you don't realize how much.
I could give you a light moment with that, which will help you. But go ahead.
Anyway, and so we need to have more talks with the young people. Even maybe starting from high school, right before they start to work. Social Security should be talking to them about the importance of following up, and if they're working for someone, making sure that the Social Security is being paid. How do they check their account to see where they're at with Social Security? Because people work for years and years and years and never do that, and find out way beyond the expiry time that nothing was contributed for them. The medical thing, talk to different companies. It doesn't, sometimes the requirement to get group insurance doesn't require that you have a large amount of people in your establishment. And that's something else that we should talk to have more programs. But these kind of programs are boring, huh?
Well, you see, that's the general principle of life and living, because as it goes, the path to the good life or to life eternal seemingly is boring, they say too. And the other part that is filled with music and so on and so forth. But in the end, they say it leads to destruction. In fact, this might be a light moment, but I talking to a fellow the other day, a couple of days ago, and he said something about, we found something about hell. And so I said to him, so that is a place for those of us who will end up there. And how is it there? He told me, well, I don't know, because nobody ever went and come back and said how it was. So the point he was making to me is, if maybe it's so nice that when people go, they stay.
Well, one of the things I learned as being a mother, it's really important, and sometimes we get the feeling our children are not listening, but you talk to them anyway. A lot of times when you think they're not listening, they're paying closer attention than you realize. And I had the opportunity, I thank God, to share a lot of things with my son in his growing up years that I'm watching him do right now. And I never thought he was paying attention. I never thought he was paying attention. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching him go through those things and adapt himself to it. And as parents, it's really, really important. We can't always leave it up to others in the schools and wherever to teach our children things. We need to have those conversations.
That is a part of what we call effective communication too, because what happens is sometimes you're talking, you're making a case, and the point that you think will win you the case ain't really that. That ain't what caused the breakthrough with the person. Mm-hmm. Because people make their own assessment and they read through the lines. So when you're talking, that's sometimes what happens. Okay, anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Brand.
Thank you.
Well, the caller asked about the medical insurance scheme. That has been something that has been talked about for some time. I know that the present federal government and the Prime Minister in particular is minded to have this pushed through. So we are hopeful that it will come on stream. I believe that, as the caller indicated, there would be, in my mind, some requirements and some stipulations inside in there, as she indicated, medical checks and so on, twice per year or whatever the time frame would be. But I think that it also would ensure that there are certain signs and certain medical preconditions are spotted early, And I believe that in the end, that would be the ultimate benefit of this scheme, where the signs and the traits are spotted at an early stage and can be treated early. And I believe that would be the greater beneficiary to the population because of that. It is something that we have long wished and hoped for. Successive government has talked about it. Successive government has, I think that they have done some cost analysis on it before, and I am hopeful that it would come on stream sooner rather than later, for the benefit of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Really, it is something that I feel that is long overdue. Really.
Yeah, I suppose as well. But I wanted to make the point that ever since I've been coming on this program, that's one of the things I've been talking about, dialysis and the dialysis machine, because I have family members who's been suffering from such conditions and had to actually leave Ireland and basically lives elsewhere in order to access the treatment. The people of Nevis find themselves have to travel to St. Kitts on a daily basis. I know I had a family member in England who had to go in for treatment, and he will go in the morning and in the afternoon he's back to work. I think locally Nevisians have well, they're not able to enjoy that because they have to go to St. Kitts and basically unable to function, on a daily basis, having to travel to St. Kitts and deal with the complication of the dialysis. But earlier also I wanted to make the point that I have spoken to a friend of mine who suffers from kidney failure, and he thinks he had a healthy life. He was quite active, working a lot and so forth, and he tell me one time he just felt an absolute sharp pain in his back, and that was it. And now we have to go regularly to St. Kitts for dialysis. We also went on to speak about insurance and even Social Security, because it is obvious that finance is a problem when it comes to accessing good information or even good health. It's quite easy to realize that wherever there is impoverishedness and a lot of poverty, health also is not on a good level. That is not really the Nevis or the St. Kitts situation in a sense. But of course, what people are realizing, going to see a doctor is very expensive these days. And I think that's where the health insurance would come in, and the regular checks. Of course, you would have an insight before things get too bad, and so that would help. But I think there's a lot of political push and pull with this, and sometimes it makes me really wonder about the realities of it. But I suppose a common ground can be found, and I think it's based solely on government policies, really, as it relates to this health insurance, whether asking businesses to come up to the table on that, or this kind of introduction of group insurance, or whatever it is, really. But finance seems to be a situation I would advocate to the fullness, and I can't wait to see a dialysis machine in operation in Nevis. I think that's one of the things I've been asking for ever since I came onto this program around 2007, 2008. And there obviously have been some promises made and so forth, and of course there was always, I suppose, some complication as it relates to having a machine here. I used to be hearing that it's too expensive to maintain and so forth. At one point I've been hearing there was no trained personnel, but I think sufficient time has passed. And I also overheard that the new wing that was built at the hospital, that is in progress at the hospital, will be hosting a dialysis machine, a dialysis center to that extent. I can't wait for that, really, to be quite honest, because it's absolutely needed. I honestly, I know there are great convenience provided for those who travel from Nevis to St. Kitts for dialysis when they go there, but you can't beat the fact that that is here in Ireland, and you can go in and get your thing done and go back to work. I think a full functional life, even though you suffer from, knowing that it cannot be cured, is something anybody who suffers from renal failure will ask for. The good doctors was here, and I think they speak to lifestyle. And you asked the question, Webbo, if shouldn't we be investing more in a campaign, bringing awareness as opposed to the cure? I think we got to do both. We got to hurry up with the cure and the facility, and just to make things easier. And two, yes, more campaign and more communication and more workshops, I suppose, because this is, there's a stat that says that here in the Caribbean, at the age of 65, you would be suffering from one or the other, high blood pressure, hypertension, or, something to that effect. I find that is quite worrying. That they can make such a forecast with such accuracy, really. And I think that we got a lot to do personally. We as parents as well. I suppose that example must be set. But we always find reasons to at times. Some people say that we are lingering still on with the slave diet that we used to be fed back then, and we eat too much this and we eat too much that. Whatever it is, it looks to me like government really must have an insight and look into this situation as it exists in the federation, but the island administration as it exists here in Nevis, and to, without further ado, as quick as possible. I know we're probably waiting for the completion of the Alexander, but a dialysis machine must be operational in Nevis. It is just something which to me is a part of the normal equipment that one would have in wouldn't have to say top notch, but in a decent enough health service, and so I'm awaiting that big time, and of course there's a lot of politics around it, and sometimes that is what affects the progress, and the people get the squeeze. In between, and of course our health is linked with our ableness to finance what is required for us, and so it's a roundabout situation where government certainly cannot exclude themselves. They certainly have to play a major role, and of course with the adults as well, as it relates to children and pointing down that road where a good lifestyle, a healthy lifestyle would probably prevent a lot of these illnesses.
No, I agree with you, especially with the last statement that you have made. Government definitely cannot exclude themselves, and the government that I have been a part of had certainly not excluded themselves. I think that while we don't have a dialysis unit physically present on the island at the moment, we have ensured that we offer great support to all of our dialysis patients here on the island of Nevis, who twice a week, perhaps even sometimes 3 times a week, have to travel to St. Kitts. It's a costly venture for individuals, for families, but the government, as you have indicated, have not excluded themselves. They have offered support while we prepare for the completion of the wing at the Alexander Hospital. We have ensured that certain persons were trained as it regards to the dialysis. So we are offering the necessary support. We have ensuring that we put the necessary mechanism in place. So once that facility is completed, we can, and you are absolutely correct, there is a unit, full-fledged unit that is earmarked to be a part of that facility. So we have heard the cries of the people of Nevis. We are in the process of ensuring that once that facility is completed, we can have that unit up and running. And while I go back to something that Dr. Lawrence indicated as it regards to lifestyle and how we go about ensuring that we can prevent some of these disease. You indicated, Naya, that I think it was a friend of yours who lived a healthy life and so to speak, healthy enough, and then still had the onset of having challenges with. I think that while we can follow the suggestions and guidelines of the doctors, things do happen, and I don't think that, not that I'm speaking for the doctor or not that I'm speaking for all of us here on the program, I don't think that anything is foolproof, but I think that it allows you a much better chance of not being impacted or affected once you do certain things. I just wanted to because you made the point that yes, your friend may have lived a good enough and healthy enough life, but it still came down with certain ailments. And I don't want the general public to think and feel that while the doctor or while we may be saying that you must do certain lifestyle changes, that everything is going to be all right. That is not what we are saying.
I wanted also, if we can go on to something else, to mention that don't know how many you got it, but in the news there's seemingly a breakthrough for Barbados when it comes to oil and gas. We know that Guyana was the latest Caribbean territory to get on that, and then you know, what I find is interesting that seemingly there's always a fight to lead any island, regardless to the prosperity of it. Because even Haiti, that's part of the problem with Haiti. Everybody wants to run Haiti, you're right. So there's always, but there's been a renewed interest in who will be at the head in Guyana when this thing really flowing, right? Now, so Guyana, before that we had Venezuela, and then we had Trinidad, and now Barbados seemingly hopeful where oil and gas is concerned. So I just want to do some thinking where if Barbados gets through with the oil and gas, and then against the backdrop that it is all the islands are somehow connected, and we were speaking, and I think you, Mr. Brand, mentioned the volcano chain and so on seem to be linked. And so what if where the oil is concerned, it is one bed, so to speak, and then you find in the years to come, some of the beginning with some of the other southern islands that's closer to Barbados and Trinidad and so on, they begin to discover they have oil offshore as well, and gas. And then maybe later on us here in the northern Leeward Islands. So with that in mind, we look at what can happen as far as the Caribbean is concerned, the Caribbean region. Let's look at us as a block and how we can survive and so on. But the interesting thing about it is that same oil and gas is what we're trying to get away from. But will Barbados and Guyana in particular run away from that now? They're just discovering it and the potential that it has. And so in that whole mix, what happens?
The mix is a troublesome and worrying mix, Webbo. And I think what it comes down to, it's the price that the consumer would have to pay. Webbo, we can discover all these minerals beneath the earth and so forth, and but with this revolution that seems to be taking place with green energy, it looks like we might be opting for something more expensive if we are sure that we have access to all these things that you obviously put on the table. In Guyana, I don't think anybody's thinking much about green energy at this point. They're going full blast, to get the oil up and find markets. Suppose that we find that our oil now is so inexpensive, and we probably, the cost of operations here in these parts become, much less than what it is. The question about the geothermal and other green energy becomes a bigger one, I suppose. And I think, Webbo, it boils down to how much, because you see, if those who control the oil control the geothermal, what are we to expect? Not much of a difference, in a sense, not much of a difference. And so it's probably about who control these resources and the role that government and governments will play in terms of a regional block will play, I suppose, because if the Caribbean gets swamped with oil, why think about geothermal at this point?
And wind and
wind.
I'm not saying that.
Not geothermal, but
just for discussion.
Yeah, green energy.
Right?
Yeah,
because is Barbados going to turn away from the oil and thing and stuff? Right, these guys are going to do. Guys are certainly not doing it.
Oh, of course.
And so on. And then if you find out later on that the feasibility of getting this oil and get it in the market and in the engines and so on and so forth, of course you got to bring as part of the debate saving the environment and all that, but the economics sometimes win.
Well, the thrust that Guyana and now Barbados is basically aggressively trying to harness this resource is all about energy independence. It is no secret, Webbo, that in the last 25 years, 30 years, we have seen the price of fuel on the global market keep rising and keep rising and keep rising. And a lot of these quote-unquote developing states basically have to make significant readjustments in their economy because of the price of fuel, energy. It's in my mind, Webbo, it's a double-edged sword, because when we think about Venezuela have one of the largest reserve when it comes around oil. But look at Venezuela's economy. It's one thing to find a resource or something that can really propel your people, but if by chance you have at the head of those countries persons who are not minded to really administer the affairs of those countries in a proper way, you can look at the chaos, you can see the chaos and confusion, and you can see where it create more hardship in the country for the majority of the people. Venezuela is a classic example. Venezuela is, in my mind, rich poor, is a poor rich country. It might sound contradictory and out of order to say such a thing, but Venezuela, the economy of Venezuela continue to be impeded, one because of the political strife, because of the leadership. Trinidad have had its heyday in terms of their discovery of oil. The economy of Trinidad expanded rapidly, oil and oil byproducts and all kind of things. Trinidad was, and again we have seen that the regression, so to speak, of Trinidad's economy. A lot of it, in my mind, Webbo, has to do with steady leadership. Barbados is now pursuing the exploration of oil offshore. Barbados, again, as many territories in the Caribbean, are really struggling from the high energy costs. And if they can find oil or quote-unquote energy at a much cheaper price, they will definitely seek to explore it. And that is what we are doing here on the island of Nevis and in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis with our geothermal project. It's all about trying to find cheaper sources of energy. Because I will tell you, Webbo, these guys in Saudi Arabia can just turn a switch, a valve, and reduce the production capacity and literally send shockwave throughout the world. Guyana, Trinidad and Barbados does not have that kind of influence when it comes around the impact that they would have if Barbados were to discover. So and the economies of scale, yes, it may be good for Barbados in terms of trying to reduce their energy bill and declare their energy independence. But I think we have had many examples that while these territories would have made those discoveries, if there are persons who are not minded to make sure that the majority of people reap the benefit, then it could create some hardship. Venezuela is a classic example. We have seen many countries in continental Africa have discovered gold and diamond and bauxite and all of those things, and it creates a sense of greed and carnage and destruction. I would hope that if and when Barbados were to discover and get their hands on the oil that they believe that they do have offshore, that the majority of people in Barbados would be the ultimate beneficiary. I think Webbo here with our geothermal project, the aim is to offer to the general public cheaper energy, and we believe that with cheaper energy we expect that the economy would be expanding rapidly, create a kind of more buoyancy and vibrancy in the economy, and I think that is what Barbados is trying to achieve, declaring the energy independence and create a lot more buoyancy in the economy.
But if you look much further down the road, and the whole transformation that taking place in the developed world as it relates to green energy and the suppression of this carbon and oil and so forth, we obviously would have to remind ourselves that we don't make cars down here. When it probably get to the point where electric cars become the thing, and obviously we probably still in that state of mind where we on about the fossil fuel, we probably would be find ourselves not in a good position, really, because of course when oil is being discovered in Barbados and so forth, yes, they're seeking for energy independence, but they're also seeking for foreign exchange, in a big way.
Absolutely.
And of course, with the expense of drilling offshore and so forth, that is fundamentally, a part of the whole, desire to discover, And the question is, where is it can make Barbados independent? Where does the excess go? Where does the excess go?
But I don't believe that. Well, let me put it this way: it will take some years for many territories, many countries to really embrace the idea of green energy. And I would tell you as well, those companies that are suppliers of fossil fuel, I don't believe that they are going to just sit by and allow green energy, quote unquote, to take over. They are going to do all that they can to try and discourage, that's the word that I want to use, discourage persons to go that way, because they know that it is a significant income for those individuals. When the price of oil is up, we hear about these oil companies making these record profits and so on and so forth. And I don't believe that they are going to give up that easily. So while we think about protecting the environment, which is what we need to do, we need to protect the environment, we need to make sure that we go along the pathway of green energy and conserving our biodiversity and all of that and so on, making sure that we protect our oceans and our guts and so on and so forth, our air quality and all of that for our good health and so on. I am one who is online with that, but the reality is it is going to take some time before the green energy can really overtake fossil fuel. And I don't believe that it is going to be, I don't want to say a walk in the park by the fossil fuel giants. They are going to fight back.
Well, there are government policies in all the developed world, as to where they want to be in the next 15 to 20 years. And that seems to contradict, to a great extent, what you're saying. But I do understand what you're saying. I mean, these people are not going to give up, But the other side is now becoming quite exposed, the disadvantages. And there are obviously a debate out there that is saying, really and truly, the environment would be equally affected, even if we're thinking along the terms of green energy and even electric vehicles and so forth. They're going to be obviously a major shift in importance in terms of global economies, because trying to have a lot of things that is necessary to make this process a complete process in terms of green energy, electric cars, and all that it takes, and so and the other side, as I said, is slowly being exposed. I don't know who is pushing, that part of it, but I've been listening quite a lot of debate where basically they're saying that our great hopes of environmental betterment as we go into green energy is not as absolute as some one want to make it sound like.
Well, I don't think anything is absolute. No.
But again, it's quite an interesting debate. It's quite an interesting debate going forward. Do you think that we've been talking to our youngsters in the school sufficiently about the revolution of green energy?
Perhaps not, and I probably would go a bit further as well. I think also the issue of recycling and perhaps a similar aggressiveness as the first part of the show tonight. Green energy is it eventually, in my mind, will catch on and take over. I believe that it will, because I think that it must. The reality is that the kind of impact that we are, and scientists continue to warn us about the rise in temperature and the rise in sea levels because of global warming and all of that, and global warming because of the kind of pollutant going into the atmosphere. At some point, Naya, we will have to realize that if we don't reduce our contamination of the environment, it would mean that, and it's going to be perhaps almost like a nuclear warning, so to speak. It's almost like the extinction of humanity, because that is what the scientists are warning. But I think that green energy will eventually take over, maybe not in our lifetime, but I think that it eventually will. Comes with its own set of challenges as well,
But quickly, I wanted to also add, just like Passing mentioned, I don't know how many of you had realized of late in the Caribbean area and across the globe, we had some major ones. There have been a series of earthquakes.
Yes.
Nothing, major for us here in the Caribbean yet, and God forbid, but we've been having quite a bit. But keep in mind that there's always activity going on, but it is to what magnitude. And the scientists will tell you that every day the seismic, the meters and stuff will record stuff. But it's when they reach to a certain magnitude, then it is noticed. Now, I don't know, to me, we are so busy going about everything else that I don't know how much of us are taking notice, and or if any necessary things need to be put in place. You know, I remember a few years ago, remember there was a big public campaign about drop, cover, hold on, and so on.
It's still on. It's still on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know how prevalent it is, but you know, and whether or not we should be more, continue to have things like that more to the forefront and stuff like that.
Well, but you're absolutely correct. The earthquake in, I think it was Turkey. I think it was a devastating so I think it was around an 8 on the magnitude. That's a significant earthquake, and the devastation that has I think they say it shook for about 4 minutes. That's a long time. But Webbo, you are again correct in terms of ensuring that we continue this campaign front and center as it regards to our disaster preparedness. And I happen to have been recently assigned a ministry with responsibility for disaster, and I know that we did a little campaign ad a few weeks ago. I think it was one of those primary schools. Can't remember which school right now. And it goes back again to try and alert the general public as to what they should do in the event of an earthquake. Every year we make certain preparation for hurricane, but there are so many other natural disasters that we need to also prepare our minds for. Tsunamis, and we have had experience with that here on the island before. Earthquake, of course, our annual preparedness in terms of hurricanes. So we continue, Webbo, and it goes back to the idea of energy independence. I think that a lot of these countries, Webbo, every single year after year, they have to face certain challenges. We here in this part of the Caribbean, we have to keep developing our country and at the same time keep an eye on the Atlantic because of hurricane and the kind of devastation that hurricane can have on these islands. And these hurricanes are becoming more and more intense. The intensity of them is causing greater destruction for these territories. We have seen the kind of devastation that they have had in the Windward Island, where you literally had to rebuild a country because, and all of these, Webbo, are what the scientists are saying to us, that because of global warming and because of the pollution of the atmosphere, these hurricanes are becoming more intense, more fierce, more frequent. Kind of rainfall becoming more sporadic, and when they do come, we have seen the kind of flooding. So while we try to make the case and make the argument for green energy, I still believe that it's going to take some time, because we have become so accustomed to our fossil fuel. It is going to be almost like a generational change to switch to green energy.
Yes, because it's ironic, because the speech that Mayor Motley made to the UN was quite well, it was listened to worldwide, and she became a very important person because of the speech. You know, I could remember she started by using one of Bob Marley's songs by saying, "Bless my eyes this morning, the sun is on the rise once again." The way earthly things are going, anything can happen. See them blast off on the spaceship, million miles from reality, no care for you, no care for me. And she asked the question, what am I to go back and tell my people? You know, and I thought that was a profound speech. And but here now we are hearing that they are exploring fossil fuel, you know. And so you said the right thing, Mr. Brand, when it comes to the economics of it. Sometimes other things get choked off, you know, and of course other things will get pushed back a little bit, you know. But I think it is the responsibility really of central administration here in the region, in the Caribbean, and to make the Caribbean people, especially in these little islands where we know we are in some way related to volcanic eruption. You cannot fall asleep in those issues, Mr. Brent, you know, as if, well, we don't know when it's going to happen, but I think little shaking that we find here and there, and in Nevis in particular, the location of our mountain, it simply speaks to the fact that there is no safe zone, you know. Mr. Brian Dyer came here, you know, once upon a time, and he pointed that out absolutely clear. And yes, I do think about it very serious, but you know, we live in paradise. We live in paradise, one of the more beautiful places in the world. And of course, we tend to overlook the danger that sometimes, you know, hovers over us. But I suppose, do government have a disaster fund in any big way, Mr. Brian? Like, you know, all this money they have for the passport and all that, anything is put aside and categorized as that?
I know that the government of the region have been seeking to try and ensure the infrastructure and so on, and it's something that I believe that all governments in the region would eventually ensure, because, like I said, every single year you are affected by.
But the problem is, Brian, sorry, but one of the reasons why I thought that government don't ensure not just the infrastructure but a lot of other things is because the governments in the islands are struggling so much.
Yes.
Almost like those of us who operate paycheck to paycheck.
And hand to mouth.
Right. So I don't know how feasible or likely that would be. I mean, it's good academic discussion.
Oh yes.
But the reality of it,
it's a tall ask. It's a tall ask. But now you spoke about safe zone.
Yes.
You're correct. Nevis's mountain is smack in the center, and God forbid we were to see an eruption. We have had an eruption right next to us in Montserrat. Montserrat was able to shift half of their population to another part of the island. Nevis may not be that fortunate because of where our mountain is. I'm going to differ with you with something there. You said that Nevis is one of the most beautiful places on earth. I'm going to differ. It is the most beautiful place on earth. So I will differ from you on that thought. Webbo, tomorrow is International Women's Day, and I want to say to all of the ladies here on the island of Nevis and in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and those who are under the sound of my voice, happy International Women's Day tomorrow. I want to say to all ladies that you continue to ensure that life as we know it is continuing and so to speak, as it relates to God's plan for humanity, to play a very important and critical role in that. So I want to say to all ladies, to all female, happy International Women's Day tomorrow. I hope that you would have a wonderful day tomorrow and always as a woman. And I want to say to you, we salute you. We thank you for the contribution that you continue to make to the development of Nevis, to the development of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, certainly to the development of the entire world. We appreciate you, we love you, and we hope that you would have a wonderful, wonderful International Women's Day tomorrow, the 8th of March 2023.
I would like to join you in that, Mr. Banner. I thought this week was Women's Week. It's only a Women's Day.
The entire month. They are having a month of celebration.
A month of celebration. But that's great. That's great. We have seen some progress here on Ireland. Globally, they're moving and taking their rightful place. You know, of course, I don't even like to use the word, you know, like we let them be, because they're our equals. So, you know, they would be. And, you know, here on Ireland and in the Federation, I would like to congratulate all those female who have rise up to take a stand, whether in politics or whether in just the defense of their being, because it's very important, you know, domestic violence and things like that really shouldn't have a place in our society. And, of course, you know, all kudos, all respect due my mom and the moms of everyone. You know, we are blessed by, you know, you know, I listened to something the other day and it was interesting because the lady said any woman, you know, they have this talk that say it takes a strong woman to be behind a successful man, something to that extent. And I've heard someone that totally refute that and say no. It's a stupid woman who want to be behind a man. The woman is made to be at the side of the man. And I thought that was quite thoughtful in a sense.
I agree.
Yeah, we totally agree.
I agree that she ought not to be behind. She ought to be to the side.
But we sometimes casually say, you know.
But I disagree. I think she should be in front.
She is worthy to be anywhere.
No. But she work with me. If she is worthy to be anywhere, how come you argue that she shouldn't be behind?
Well, maybe she wants to be behind because she pushes. Maybe that's the place that she finds herself exerting.
So as far as you're concerned, she could be anywhere, including behind.
Of course.
Okay, well, I argue my position is she should be in front.
Well, Webbo,
what say you? I decide.
I think, Webbo, when the phrase was coined, it perhaps was in a different era where it was felt that women are to be behind men. So we have now come a long way from that. And I agree with you. Perhaps they can be in front, to the side, behind, because I think that they have earned their rightful place.
You're not agreeing with me with that. My position is they need to be in front.
I agree with that as well.
You agree with me?
Yeah.
So you agree that they should be to the side?
To the side, in front, all over.
What are you to Edric?
Edric? It's Naya.
He's my teacher. He's one of my teachers.
So because you got to take a position. Now you think they should be to the side?
They got to take their rightful place.
Which is one?
Anywhere.
Even behind?
Even behind.
Well, that's your position. Mr. Brand, your position is one. You have to hold a position. Don't say anyway.
Webbo, I agree with that. Their rightful place.
Okay.
Their rightful place. And that is their rightful place.
Okay. You see the difference with me, right? I take a stand and I stick with it. I think is in front. No behind, no to the side, in front.
We are not disagreeing.
No, we are not disagreeing, you know, Webbo.
That's the last word. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brandley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On The Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
Webbo